Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules, and no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network, and you can follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/@RamsUpPodcast. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined often by my football guru, Ian, along with a bunch of other friends of the show on occasion. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome back, Ram fans. Mark from Rams Up here. Getting back into the groove. I picked a really bad time, or I should say my family picked a really inopportune time to go on a big family vacation, and that's why you're seeing so much of Ian. And a good thing, he did a great job covering the draft. I was able to join just once, and man, some great coverage by Ian, and a shout out to him for stepping up to the plate in my absence. And, he does a great job with the player analysis, and he would be our go-to guy regardless during the draft. But hey, he carried the show on his shoulders for 4 or 5 days there. So thank you, Ian. Great stuff. And I'm going to try to go over some of my thoughts that I've been gathering during and after this draft. I'm not going to rehash a lot of the details that Ian already covered, just some additional thoughts that I think are pretty interesting. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is maneuvering through this draft. Les Snead, going in, the Rams had 4 of their own picks. That's including the comp pick. They had the number 26 pick, number 90, number 101, that's the comp pick, and number 127 overall. And they end up making just one of those actual selections, and that's the number 90 pick, the 90th overall. Everything else moving all over the place. They started with 4 6-rounders, did not make a single one of those selections. So I'll rehash this again in a second here. But Les Snead, man, not being shy, very aggressive, and going for quality over quantity, that's for sure. Starting with 8, ending up with 6. But of course, that round 1 pick next year, how big is that? The Rams are well positioned to continue improving through next year at least. So great job by the Rams staff. And real quickly, I'll just go over these draft picks. And again, Ian has been pretty thorough in his coverage. He had a drop dedicated to each one of these guys. But in the second round, Terrence Ferguson, the tight end out of Oregon, if he pans out, I think he's the key to this draft. If he pans out and he turns out to be the real deal, this draft very well could be an A, just based on him and that number 1 pick next year. Now, hopefully a couple of these other guys will come through as well, of course, but Terrence Ferguson taking over Elijah Arroyo and Harold Fannin Jr. It caught some of us by surprise, not all of us though. We'll see how it turns out, but he looks like he's the real deal. He's got the speed, the athleticism, the attitude, the character that the Rams look for. So we'll see how that turns out. And then in the third round, the edge rusher Josiah Stewart out of Michigan. And this is a pick that surprised me because, you know, a lot of Ram fans on the channel kept on hammering for another edge rusher, and I didn't see the need. I mean, you can always get better at every position in every draft. I just thought there were higher priorities like cornerback. But hey, the Rams have some things going on in the background that maybe we don't know about yet. And I'll talk about that in a second as well. And then in the fourth round, Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn. And I've been telling you, Rams pick a running back every year. They just do it under Sean McVay. And back to Terrence Ferguson, they also highlight tight ends early in the draft. I got hammered for suggesting the Rams might take a tight end in the first round. It just seemed kind of obvious to me. They didn't take a tight end in the first round, but their first pick was indeed tight end. And then Hunter, you know, the argument has been, do we need a speed rusher, change of pace back? Do we need a power back? And we kind of got both in Hunter. So a solid pick, and the Rams had met with him, so we had mocked him to the Rams a couple of times based on that. The Rams are clearly interested. It is either a smokescreen or they are interested, and it turns out they were indeed interested. And then defensive tackle Ty Hamilton out of Ohio State in the fifth round. He'll add some rotational depth behind the other guys. Poona Ford, basically the nose tackle. Now you have Ty Hamilton and Tyler Davis, Larrell Murchison, Deshaun Johnson, Kobe Turner. I'm probably forgetting somebody, but pretty solid depth-wise and quality-wise as far as our frontline guys. So pretty happy with that pick. And then linebacker Chris Paul, Pooh Paul, I guess we're going to be calling him, Chris Paul Jr., and Paul Wally, our old buddy, chimed in on him, and he sees him as just a great pick, great value, a guy that can just get after ball carriers and make tackles sideline to sideline. He sees him as similar to Omar Speights, possibly a bit of an upgrade. Chris Paul, great addition to this linebacker group. And then the wide receiver. Now, I've heard different mispronunciations on this. I believe it is Konate Mumpfield, and he's out of Pittsburgh. And he's a guy that's I watched some film on him. These highlight films can sometimes be, cherry picked, but he just has a knack for getting open, little double moves, triple moves, settling in those open spaces, open over and over and over again. And I think he's got a good shot at making this team as a 7th round draft pick. So overall, pretty solid draft for the Rams. Of course, we never know. We won't know for a year or two, but Les Snead and Sean McVay, their track records suggest this will end up being a decent draft. But I think it's really about Terrence Ferguson, in my opinion. He better pan out. The Rams have had, I shouldn't say stinkers in the second round, but something to be left to be desired there with some of their picks. And now going into free agency, I shared the positions, the holes to fill on this roster. For those of you listening, I'll just run through this. It's visually here on the YouTube channel pretty clearly. I said they needed to address linebacker, and they did in two ways, right? They brought on Nate Landman, Troy Reeder. A lot of you probably aren't too excited about that, but some of his ex-teammates are, including Eric Weddle. And then they draft Chris Paul, Pooh Paul, in the draft. And, I think he's exactly what they needed. They seem to have some guys very similar to each other in Landman and Reeder, and Omar Speights, kind of an in-between linebacker, in between the old school big linebacker and the rangy type. And then you got Chris Paul, who is going to be a guy that adds a little bit of different spice, a different just a different type of linebacker to this group that we haven't had since Ernest Jones left, I think. And we had to address backup quarterback, and that was before they re-signed Jimmy G. Tight end, they obviously addressed that. Speed running back, we'll qualify Jarquez Hunter as a speed running back, certainly faster at 4.44 in the 40, faster than Corum and Kyron. Wide receiver, hey, I think Devontae Adams checks that box, and nose tackle Poona Ford checks that box. The two holes to fill that they have not addressed, cornerback, now Ahkello Witherspoon, sort of, kinda, that didn't really check the box for me. You could argue that we're set as far as our starters, but when I said holes to fill, in my mind, that was an improvement over what we had last year. We have not done that. Did not draft a defensive back at all, and offensive tackle depth. So maybe the Rams have a different view of, or at least a view of their current backups that maybe we're not quite aware of. Maybe they have a better feeling about their backups than what we would have based on what we saw last season. Now, when I went into this draft, I took a guess, a hack at what I thought, the positions I thought they would draft, the positions I thought they would not, and the ones I wasn't so sure about. Defensive line, I said yes, and they did. Drafting Ty Hamilton. Edge, I had a question mark. I didn't really think they needed to, but based on the past history, I thought they might, and the fact that edge rushers are so important, and they did indeed draft one. Inside linebacker, I said yes. Chris Paul, I got to start saying Pooh Paul. Pooh Paul, do you say Pooh Paul Jr.? Is it just Pooh Paul? And so I got that. I was correct on that estimation. Cornerback, I thought they would for sure. I was wrong. Safety, I thought they might. They did not. No special teams selected. That was my prediction. I thought there was a chance they'd draft a quarterback, and they basically came out and said at one point that they were looking ahead to next year. They're happy with their quarterback room, but you never know if it's a smokescreen or not. So I thought they still might, but they did not. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, I thought they would, and they did. I thought they'd go wide receiver earlier than the 7th round, though. And we'll talk about the impacts of all these draft picks on different existing position groups in a second here. And then, offensive line, I thought they'd draft an offensive lineman. I leaned towards offensive tackle, and they drafted neither. And, we'll look at the roster here, the depth groups at some point, maybe even make some roster predictions, and maybe that'll bring into focus what's on hand for the Rams as far as the offensive line, what the backups look like, and how comfortable we should be should disaster strike. And I'm not going to talk about that anymore.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and Michelob Ultra is getting you closer to the game than ever with courtside seats and more. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access Courtside 2024 to 2025 sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Ends on July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/superior access/courtside for free entry deadlines and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
It's almost Mother's Day, and you can now get anything you need delivered with Uber Eats. Well, almost anything. So no, you can't order a relaxing shower, but some beautiful flowers, you bet we deliver those. A bird bath? No. A bath bomb? Absolutely. It's no to a chocolate lab, but yes to some chocolate truffles. So whether it's a last-minute gift for Mother's Day, fresh groceries, or food from your favorite restaurants, get it delivered today with Uber Eats. Order now. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Grand Highlander. From daily routines to life-changing adventures, the Toyota Grand Highlander is spacious, powerful, and ready to take on life's grand challenges. Advanced safety features and innovative technology give you confidence for whatever life throws at you. And it's available in a hybrid Nightshade Special Edition, which includes sophisticated gloss black exterior accents and 20-inch black alloy wheels. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
So what were the surprises to me? No offensive linemen, no defensive backs. I was surprised that they waited until the 7th round to draft a wide receiver. And I was surprised that they were trying to trade up for T-Mac McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, or did they? That seems to be the not necessarily a fact at this point, but seems to be the storyline that everybody is buying into. I just didn't see him as a Rams type wide receiver. Certainly super talented. You see what this guy does on some of his highlights and practice film, one-handed catches, big receiver, and we'll see how he does with the Panthers. But if they were trying to trade up for him, that's a big surprise to me. And I was also surprised that McVay said what he said to Terrence Ferguson, that Tyler Higbee is going to enjoy running at tight end alongside of him. And to me, that's throwing shade at Colby Parkinson and perhaps Davis Allen as well. But, I suspect if McVay had to do it over again, maybe he wouldn't say that. That's just not a good look. Hey, maybe Colby deserves to have the shade thrown at him, but I still think it's not the best move on McVay's part to make comments like that on a phone call that's going to be shared across the web, but it is what it is. And what was I not surprised by? I was not surprised they used a premier pick on a running back, and I was not surprised that McVay's obsession with tight ends continues, and I was not surprised they drafted an inside linebacker with range. They kind of had to. Omar Speights is probably the rangiest linebacker they had, and then after him, there may be some guys buried on the depth chart and the practice squad and this 90-man roster they're formulating, but they needed to add a draft pick that was a linebacker with range, and Poophall is the guy. So some other observations: they started with 4 6th-round picks, ended up making none of those. First 5 picks were from either the Big Ten or the SEC. The last pick, Mumpfield, Pittsburgh, the ACC, and they seem to focus on players with specific skills. That would include Mumpfield, doing dirty work, route running, Chris Paul, great tackler, maybe not as great in coverage as you would expect. Jarquez Hunter, a kind of half power back, half speed back. I don't think such a thing existed, but if it did, it is Jarquez Hunter. And I think every one of these draft picks, a lot of them actually grade poorly as far as athleticism, but they do have, and I'm excluding Terrence Ferguson in that assessment, by the way, but most of them just have very good skill sets, very specific skill sets, strengths that they lean on, as opposed to, well-balanced, versatile players that measure out very well athletically. And I think that's a theme of this draft class, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can go either way on it, but Ian and I will talk more about that in the coming week for sure. So who are the winners on this Rams roster? Who are the players on this roster that are sort of kind of celebrating based on what the Rams did in this draft? Well, Stetson Bennett has to be happy. The Rams did sign a couple of undrafted quarterbacks that will be, camp arms, but possibly pushing for a roster spot, nudging out Stetson Bennett. But Bennett clearly has to be the favorite. Xavier Smith has to be happy. I think there's room on this roster for him and Mumpfield, but, this wide receiver group is really interesting. Xavier Smith and Tutu Atwell, the speed elements here. I'd love to see Xavier get more snaps, get involved more in the offense, but I feel the same way about Tutu and Jordan. So what are you going to do? And Warren McClendon and KT Leviston, I mentioned earlier, who are the Rams' backup tackles? I think it's them. And maybe McVay has seen enough of Leviston. I think he's got the possibility of being a reliable backup. And Warren McClendon, we saw a little bit of him, and I'll have to ping Ian on that, how he feels about McClendon as a backup tackle if things go south for us, if there's some injuries that we have to deal with, hopefully for just a game or two. Darius Williams has to be happy. No cornerback selected, and I think he would be the guy that would be at risk of losing a starting job, possibly even a roster spot, especially if the Rams used a premium pick on a cornerback, but they did not. And you could really say the entire cornerback group is happy. Well, the reason I say for now, hey, is there a move in the works? Talk about that in a second. And Jalen McCullough, basically the entire safety group, but Jalen McCullough probably the most vulnerable. No safeties drafted. And, hey, there are some undrafted rookies that are all going to be pushing for a spot, just like there is every year. But right now, Jalen McCullough has to be happy. And who were the losers, the guys that are like scratching their head, asking, what the heck, what is my future with this team? Well, Ronnie Rivers has to be a little concerned, and maybe even Blake Corum. Now, Corum's going to be on this roster, but he could end up being third fiddle, possibly. And Ronnie Rivers, and I didn't include Cody Schrader. Both of them probably have to be a little bit worried. Colby Parkinson is the obvious one. If the Rams are happy with Terrence Ferguson through the mini camps and all that, they get a good feel for how he might impact this offense. Colby Parkinson could find himself on the street, unfortunately. I'd love to see him stick with this team. And I think the odds are that he will, but that comment by McVay, just kind of unsettling. That has to upset Colby more than the actual draft pick, hearing what McVay had to say. And then Davis Allen, obviously, probably not as concerned as Colby because, Colby is the guy they would cut, not Davis Allen. Davis Allen's still on his rookie contract, so I think he would be okay regardless. If they were to keep Colby, then maybe Davis Allen is in trouble, but I think they'd find a way to keep him. And then there's Brennan Jackson and Nick Hampton. The fact that they used a high pick, a third-round pick on Josiah Stewart, what does that tell you about Brennan Jackson? Yeah, maybe the Rams are going to draft a edge rusher every year, or maybe they're just not seeing it with Brennan Jackson and they had to go early on another edge rusher. And then there's Nick Hampton, a guy that got dinged up at the end of the year, but has shown, he's had his moments, and I think he could be a really impactful player if he stayed healthy and got his opportunities. But Josiah Stewart has to have both these guys a little bit worried, probably more so Brennan Jackson than Nick Hampton, I think. I don't know what the Rams, I don't know how the Rams feel about Brennan Jackson, and I don't think any of us do at this point. We just have to see what happens down the road with that position group. And just run through the post-draft starters as I see it. On the offense, nothing really changed after this draft. It was really the Coleman Shelton signing that changed things. Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Alaric Jackson, Steve Avila, Coleman Shelton, Kevin Dotson, Rob Havenstein, Tyler Higbee, and Tutu Atwell, with Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams. And key backups, you got the tight end, Terrence Ferguson, Garoppolo. It's really significant that we still have him on board, in my opinion. The two running backs, Corum and Hunter, we could have a really good running back group here. And then Jordan Whittington, of course, Colby Parkinson, still have him as a key backup, although it could end up being Davis Allen, third man up, and then Warren McClendon, Bo Limmer, and Justin Dedich along the offensive line. On the defensive side, what do we have? This is, a little bit messier because, you don't know what position, what groups, what defensive groups are going to run out there on a given day. So I got more than 11 guys on this group. Up front, Kobe Turner, Poona Ford, and Braden Fisk. That's pretty dang good. Two edge rushers, Jared Verse and Byron Young. That's pretty dang good too. And then let's say you have Omar Spates and Pooh Paul and Quentin Lake, throw him out there. And then 4 DBs, Witherspoon, D. Will, Kinchins, and Curl. And I still say that's the group that could use some modest improvement. And then the backups, guys like Josiah Stewart, Ty Robinson, Laurel Murchison, Nate Landman, Tyler Davis, Jalen McCullough, Darion Kendrick, tend to forget about him. And then Forbes, that's a guy that we don't know how he's going to fit in, if at all, in this secondary. Maybe that's why the Rams did not draft a DB, because of guys like Kendrick and Forbes. And then you have Hampton, Brandon Jackson, and Deshaun Johnson. And I probably missed somebody. What are you calling key backups? What are you calling guys that are maybe not so key, but that's what I came up with. And so what's next? What's next for this Rams team? What's next for this front office? Jalen Ramsey, is he on the horizon? Now, someone suggested online, I'm not sure who it was, that adding this first round pick next year is a move for the Rams to go all in this year. Maybe send that pick to someone for a veteran player. But there is no way the Rams are giving up a first round pick for Ramsey. But I think there are some package deals they could come up with the Dolphins to bring him over. And I think it's possible. I'm tempted to say likely, but I'm just not sure. Backup offensive tackles, I think there may be a move on the horizon in that regard. I can only guess who it might be. I'm not going to say the name Noteboom because you guys are just going to trample on me in the comments. And then next year's draft, that is going to be exciting, assuming the Rams hang on to both those first round picks. We're hoping one of them is number 32 overall. And we're hoping the other one is number 1 overall if the Falcons take a nosedive. And the Rams can have a play in that. They'll play the Falcons, and so there's 2 reasons to win that game, right? Put one in the win column for ourselves and improve our draft position potentially, at least a little bit, by handing the Falcons a loss. Man, I love Raheem Morris, but I'm sorry. I'm hoping his team really bites the big one this coming season. We all got to be rooting for that. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the business. Never had anything against the Falcons, and I love Raheem Morris, but sorry, Raheem. We'll be rooting against you every game of the season. And there's one other guy I wanted to talk about. We'll get into the undrafted free agents another episode. I'll have Ian on board for that. I really respect his ability to to go through these guys and assess their potential for helping out this roster. But one guy I did want to talk about is Sean Dolak, a linebacker out of Buffalo. And this is another guy that Paul Walia really loves and thinks he has a chance of making this roster. Most likely as a special teams player, backup linebacker, obviously. But this is a type of guy you got to root for. Doesn't have all those athletic traits that you typically look for in the NFL. And that's why he went undrafted, but went from a walk-on to an All-American, 6'1", 225 pounds, so productive, 3-year starter, just making tackles, high IQ, great instincts, just lacks the athletic ability that a lot of these other guys do, guys like Chris Paul, for example. But I think we'll have to track this guy, Sean Dolak. Again, we'll get into a bunch of the other undrafted rookies that the Rams signed another day, and there's some interesting ones, but maybe we'll take them one at a time every episode, talk about one of them. But Sean Dolak, keep your eye on him, a guy that could make some noise in training camp, and maybe we'll be pulling for. But this roster is so solid right now. It really is. I did a first run through a potential 53-man roster, and usually you get down to those last few guys and you're like, you know what? Yeah, these are easy cuts. Does it really make a difference? 2 or 3 of these guys are not going to be impact players, but there's going to be some tough decisions, and there's going to be some good players that don't make this team. So Sean Dolak has his work cut out for him. A linebacker is one group where, if you're an undrafted linebacker, you're hoping the Rams call, because the additions that they have made in free agency are guys that could be beat out by, a talented rookie, undrafted rookie. So we'll talk about these guys more, and maybe we'll do that next episode, make our first 53-man roster prediction for the 2025 Rams. Okay, that's all I got. We'll be back with Ian another night here real soon. Ian will be dropping videos by himself as well, like he always does. He's got really good content. Make sure you check it out. And please subscribe, like these videos, and subscribe to the podcast as well. Out here for now from Rams Up, go Rams. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.